from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo.
Welcome to the CoCo Crew Podcast. A delicious adventure into the world of retro computing news and information. Featuring the Tandy Color Computer.
Hey, you got your CoCo 3 yet?
CoCo.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, CoCo Maniacs. Welcome to episode 81 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. Woo! This is John Linville. I'm here with our regular host lineup. Of course, we've got Mr. Neil Blanchard. Hello, Neil.
Hello, John, and all you CoCo Cruisers listening.
Very good. Hello, Mr. Mike Rowan. Hello, Mike.
Hello, CoCo Cruisers.
And, of course, Mr. Boise Pete. Hello, Boise.
Good evening, CoCo Maniacs.
Very good, very good. Getting closer to, well, spring in North America, closer to the traditional time of Kokofest. Kokofest is a little later than usual this year, not quite as late as last year. About 2 months away, maybe 2.5, I guess, from the time this podcast will be released. It's shaping up. I think it'll be a decent event. Grant is putting some effort into making sure the schedule's good, getting some good talks lined up, that sort of thing. Beyond that, Tandy Assembly is about 7 months away, so I'm sure that's going to be a good event come early fall. Definitely excited about that. What's everyone doing? Anyone got any projects running? Any cool stuff going?
Working on a couple of Gamesters, actually. Got a couple orders for those.
Yeah.
So finishing a pair of them up.
Cool. I've been doing some PCB designs since Christmas or so.
Yeah, it's looking nice.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
You're going to talk about it in the news segment, I take it?
Well, don't really have a news item for it. I'll just mention it here. I've put together an auto fire circuit that can be added to a joystick. Right now, the PCBs are pretty small, about 2 centimeters by 3 centimeters. Basically, a standard 555 timer circuit with a little adornments to make it work with a fire button. Got it tested over the weekend, and it seems to do the job. A potentiometer, you can adjust the rate of fire from slower than once a second, about once every 1.5 seconds at the slowest, and at the fastest, it's quite a bit faster than I think at least most games will probably only check it about once every 60 times a second at fastest, and it can go faster than that. So if you turn it up too fast, you'll actually miss the shots. But the adjustable range, I think, works pretty well. And some games, I'm sure, will work better with faster shooting, and some will work better with slower shooting. We'll see where that goes. I'll probably put a few kits together and have them at Kokofest. Maybe we'll get Neil making them or something. And, of course, maybe we'll end up putting them in as an option on the Sega Joypad adapters. Haven't worked that out yet, but seems reasonable to expect that might happen. And I've got a couple other projects kind of in the works. Not quite. I don't like to announce them until I've at least built one and tested it. So that's So I sent off the design to be built. So hopefully that'll come in the next week or two, and I'll be able to start working on that design, see what comes of that. What about acquisitions? Anybody bought anything recently?
February's a short month.
Yeah, that's true. I've been buying parts for PCB design projects.
Yeah.
Amazon's not a bad supplier for some of these parts in fairly small quantities, especially if you have Amazon Prime. You can actually get them shipped to you without having to wait 3 months for something to come across the ocean or whatever. That's kind of nice. I bought a Sony PVM, professional video monitor, an 8-inch tube CRT monitor. I've always thought they were kind of cool. And then this one in particular came with a I don't know what you call these cases. It's kind of like a Pelican case. It's a hard-sided case with padding on the inside, but it kind of has a more traditional look to it, almost like a foot locker or something. I'm sure there's a name for them, but I don't know what it is. It's the kind of thing you'd see roadies or packing up their band's equipment in or something like that. Anyway.
Yeah, used to call those trap cases.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of a neat case. It arrived at the door. They basically put a piece of tape around the case and just shipped it in the case. So it just arrived on the door in the case, and my wife said, "Who sent a Harry Potter trunk?" So kind of funny. So anyway, that's hopefully I haven't even had a chance to plug it in yet. Hopefully that'll work and maybe be a nice addition to my travel lineup for CoCo or other retro equipment. Anyone else? Anyone else buy anything cool?
I picked up a Digital Arty A7 FPGA board for the PhD research that I'm going to be embarking on based on the Turbo 9 project. Yep.
Nice.
Cool. I can only imagine what you're going to load up on that FPGA.
Something
cool.
near and dear to all of our hearts, right? The beautiful 6809 microprocessor.
Very nice. All right. Well, sounds like good things are coming. Hopefully that makes a nice introduction. So why don't we take a short little break, and then we'll be back with some announcements.
Since 1994, Cloud9 has made cool stuff for your color computer. Now Cloud9 is proud to announce the 2 Megabyte Triad Plus memory expansion board. The Triad Plus works in two ways. Purchase just the Triad Plus board to expand your Color Computer 3 from 128K to 512K of RAM. Or add the new Protector Plus MMU to access the full 2 megabytes of static RAM aboard the Triad Plus. And the Protector Plus MMU utilizes full buffering to protect your CPU. Unlike previous 2 megabyte memory expansions for the CoCo 3, the Triad Plus operates seamlessly without the need for special patches, configuration, or workarounds. Games like Donkey Kong Remix and Sierra Adventure games simply work without hassle. And the Triad Plus will reduce your CoCo's power consumption and heat generation. The Triad Plus and Protector Plus MMU, only from the innovative engineering of Cloud9. Cool stuff for your color computer. Visit cloud9tech.com for details.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, welcome back. Now it's time for announcements. Let's see, you are, of course, listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast. We are available on Twitter with the Twitter handle of @CoCo Crew Podcast. That's @CoCoCrewPodcast. If you are prone to sending tweets, feel free to tweet at us, and we may tweet back. I say that every time. No, very few people ever actually tweeted us. So, I don't know. Feel free to reach out. Even for feedback, that'd be cool too. Let's see, we are available on Facebook. We have a Facebook group, and it's called The CoCo Crew Podcast. It's 4 separate words. Come and look for us on Facebook and join the group, and maybe you get a little inside information, or occasionally a piece of news a little early or something like that, or follow what the hosts are up to. That kind of stuff. Come and be part of the group. Fun to be had by all. We are, of course, a podcast. We are available. We have an RSS feed available at cococrew.org. But if that's too DIY for you as a podcast listener, then you can find us through Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and if you prefer to stream your podcasts, we're available for streaming through Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And if for some reason that is not easy enough for you to find us, please reach out. Let us know where you like to find your podcast audio, and we'll see if we can get listed there. One site I'm sure we all have access to is YouTube. And so for some time we've been taking our audio podcasts and processing them a little bit to produce a video version. And we have playlists available on YouTube. You may want to check that out. The YouTube version is handy because YouTube does providing subtitles. Perhaps if you have a hearing impairment or if English is not your first language, you may find it helpful to be able to read along. if we talk a little too fast, or Neil's accent can be kind of weird. So anyway, so feel free to check us out through YouTube. Let's see, we are a member of the Throwback Network. This is a list of retro-themed podcasts centered around 80s culture and technology, that sort of thing. There's a variety of podcasts available there. Some of them are, like you said, old computers or old video games, that sort of thing. And there's a few others related to things like The Greatest American Hero or various old 80s culture kind of thing. So if you're caught up with the CoCo Crew Podcast and you're looking for something else to listen to, then we recommend that you check out the Throwback Network. We're also available listed on the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. This is also a list of retro-themed podcasts, in this case all dedicated to some form of retro technology or gaming. So old game consoles, Atari 2600 and 5200, the ColecoVision, the Commodore 64, the Magnavox Odyssey, the Nintendo Entertainment System, all that sort of stuff. So, once again, if you are caught up with the CoCo Crew Podcast, looking for something else to listen to, then we recommend that you check out the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. Audio for the CoCo Crew Podcast is hosted by Cyber Ears. If you're looking for somewhere to host your own audio on the internet, whether it be for your club or your business or your church or synagogue or mosque or other place of worship or pretty much whatever you've got, your own podcast, whatever, then we recommend that you check out Cyber Ears, where you will get unlimited bandwidth in your audio on your terms. If you want to reach out to the host of the CoCo Crew Podcast via email, we have a few addresses set up. The first three will reach all of the hosts. If you want to drop some news or just generally praise or complain about the show, then you can use one of these first three. So we've got show, SHOW, at CoCoCrew.org. That's at CoCoCrew.org. Also, we have podcast, PODCAST, at CoCoCrew.org. And feedback, FEEDBACK, at CoCoCrew.org. And if instead you want to reach out to just one of us for whatever reason, then you can reach me at John, JOHN, at CoCoCrew.org, Neil, NEIL, at CoCoCrew.org, Mike, MIKE, at CoCoCrew.org, or Boise, BOISY, at CoCoCrew.org. Feel free to send us some email with feedback, suggestions, news items, whatever you've got. We'll be happy to hear from you. Let's see. Let's look at some events coming up in the real world that we think our listeners might have some interest in. Coming in April 22 to 24, 2022, we've got the Vintage Computer Festival East, which will be held in Wall, New Jersey at the Invoice Science and History Museum. It's a cool site, an old Army base with some history related to the Marconi radio, various other technology stuff from the past. This year's themes, women in computing and computers for the masses. So, if you are in the northeastern part of the United States or close by, check out some cool old retro computers towards the end of April. Then you should check out VCF East, Wall, New Jersey, April 22nd through the 24th of 2022. April 29th through May 1st of 2022, we have the Midwest Gaming Classic held at the Wisconsin Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Midwest Gaming Classic is about celebrating gaming, trying new things, learning about the gaming hobby, meeting others who share the love of gaming, and having fun doing it. No matter if you have one console, a handful of games, or thousands of games in every room of your house, you'll find something to celebrate with us. Very cool, highly recommended from Ron Klein. Never been myself. The pictures look like it'd be a fantastic thing to explore. Again, if you're in the northern part of the Midwest there, somewhere near Milwaukee, Wisconsin, April 29th through May 1st, 2022, check out Midwest Gaming Classic. May 14th and 15th of 2022, we have the last Chicago Kokofest, put on by Glenside Color Computer Club in the Chicago area. This event will be held in Holiday Inn, Elk Grove Village, in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, May 14th, 15th of 2022. Should be a cool event. I think at least a couple of us are going to be there. Hope to see you if you come. Feel free to introduce yourselves and let us know how much you enjoy the show. So on July 15th through 17th of 2022, we have the Southern Fried Gaming Expo held in Atlanta, Georgia at the Marriott Renaissance Waverly. Southern Fried Gaming Expo features more than 250 arcade and pinball machines, dozens of new and retro console systems, massive tabletop library, RPGs, wrestling, music, tournaments, a vendor expo, exciting panel sessions, guest speakers, and so much more. Game all weekend at #SFGE 2022. So, cool event. Been trying to go the past couple of years and couldn't go, and then refused to go last year because I'm a mask non-believer. Don't know if I'll make it this year or not. Hopefully the COVID-related restrictions will be dropped this year, I'm hoping. Could be a cool event to go to. So check it out. Coming in July 19th through the 24th of 2022, we have Kansas Fest, Apple II Forever, it says. The Apple II event. Kansas Fest is the world's only annual convention dedicated to the Apple II computer that revolutionized the personal computing industry. Kansas Fest invites hobbyists, retro computing enthusiasts, and die-hard aficionados together from all corners of the world. So this is the event that at least has traditionally been held in person at Rockhurst University, Kansas City, Missouri. The attendees staying in the dorm room. So a very immersive experience. Cool event. It's Apple II oriented, obviously. Don't know for sure if they're going to be live this year or not, but follow the link in the show notes, and I'm sure you can find out more information. August 6th through 7th of 2022, we have Vintage Computer Festival West, which will be held at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California. VCF West is for everyone, computer geeks, families/children, students, collectors, IT professionals, curious onlookers. You'll find demos of 1960s mini computers, 1970s homebrew systems, 1980s 8-bitters, and a few oddities. Some exhibits contain pristine original machines, while others focus on unique modern hacks and everything in between. So, if you are on the west coast of the United States or thereabouts, August 6th through 7th of 2022, they need to update their website because most of the information is still from 2021. But hopefully they'll have plenty of time to update the website. I'm sure it'll be a good event coming in August. Let's see. Also, it's finally getting to the big event, the one the hosts of this podcast are involved with organizing. Tandy Assembly, coming September 30th through October 2nd, 2022, Springfield, Ohio. This will be a great event for all things Tandy. CoCo will be represented, Z80, like the Model 1 and 3 and 4, even the 2 will be represented. Even good chance you'll even see a Model 16 or 6000. Probably be Tandy 1000s, the pocket computers, Model 100s. If it was made by Tandy and it's a computer, there's a pretty good chance you'll see one at Tandy Assembly coming in late September and October in Springfield, Ohio. Cool event. Definitely come and see us. We'll be happy to see you.
If I can make it there this year, which I'm really hoping I can.
Let's hope so. I definitely want to see you this year.
Oh, it's been too long. I'm gonna have a nice Tandy MS-DOS presence. That's what my display is going to be this year if I make it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that to look forward to, that's the end of our announcements. So why don't we take another little break, and then we'll be back with some news.
Do you draw on a CoCo?
Then you need ChromaSketch, the picture program writer. ChromaSketch is a graphics package that can actually write a basic program as you draw, paint, and letter on the high-res screen. Simply enable the program writer option and save the program to tape or disk to recreate your picture from basic at any time, or save the screen as a binary image. Draw complex shapes and patterns. Save these definitions to tape or disk for use in your own basic programs. ChromaSketch's dual cursors simplify creating arcs, circles, lines, and boxes. Enhance your drawing experience with options like full-screen crosshair cursor or graph paper grid. Draw complex objects and ChromaSketch will redraw, rotate, reduce, or enlarge them at any position, in any color or pattern. Paint in any dot pattern, including checks, stripes, or others that you define yourself. Draw dotted or twisted lines. Overlay color patterns for translucent effects. And the fast, compact graphic programs that ChromaSketch generates are yours to use in any way you wish without license. These basic programs can be used for games, graphic adventures, educational software, or on-screen slideshows. ChromaSketch can utilize any combination of joystick-compatible devices, including the touchpad or color mouse. Best of all, ChromaSketch is just $29.95 on cassette and $34.95 on disc, plus free shipping and handling. ChromaSketch requires 32K extended basic and works with all ROM versions. ChromaSketch, the picture program writer, from Nexus, Knoxville, Tennessee. New from Saguaro Software. Eagle, an enhanced lunar landing simulation for the color computer.
Eagle, you are go for orbital descent.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Break from orbit and use your skill to land safely on the surface. Dual joysticks control your craft's thrust and attitude. Your flight computer continually displays horizontal and vertical velocities, acceleration values, vertical and horizontal distances to the surface, fuel consumption, and more. At advanced levels, test your mettle by injecting problems such as fuel leaks and display failures. Land and launch the upper stage back into orbit.
We are go for liftoff.
Eagle is as educational as it is fun. 32K color computer with 2 joysticks required. Eagle is just $24.95 on cassette or $29.95 on disc or AMDEC cartridge. Eagle from Saguaro Software.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, thanks for coming back. Now it's time for the news.
Top of the set I have here is from Jim Gary. He has ported another game to the MC-10 called Animal. It's from David All's Basic Computer Games. I don't know if it's quite a game. It seems more like an educational style game here.
It's a guessing game, I think.
Yeah, so there's some AI to it, which is kind of cool. Yeah, it looks really neat. I watched this video here, so check it out in the show notes. But yeah, nice to have this ported over.
Yep, very cool.
All right, next news article is from John Gatewood Ham, and this is John's ECMA-55 Minimal Basic Compiler.
I don't know how far he's taking this, but what platforms or whatever he's going to support. But I think it's supposed to be for modern platforms, but for writing old style basic stuff. Oh. So I thought that might have some appeal to people. And he's targeted a standardized version of BASIC. Put some work into it. If it appeals to you to write code in BASIC, you may want to check that out.
So this would run on modern machines if you compile it?
That's what I understand, yeah.
Oh, that's great. The next news article is from T.J. Ferreira. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right. I see this guy all the time on different retro platforms. Should know how to pronounce his last name. Unboxing of the Radio Shack TRS-80 MC-10 micro color computer. And so he unboxes it and gives it a first test. So this guy's kind of cool. I don't know if you ever watch his videos, but he's very enthusiastic. He's done a lot of unboxing of different retro machines, so kind of cool to check out if you've never seen this style computer before. So
yeah. I mean, it's not a technical deep dive or anything like that. But if you're unfamiliar with the MC-10, it might be a nice way to dip your toe in the water and see if you're interested.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've always liked unboxing videos, especially if you haven't seen the product before. It's kind of handy. All right, next one here, Gwillem Thomas. This is really cool, actually. Single-page assembler, disassembler, and emulator for entry-level tinkering with a 6809 CPU. Now that is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, this runs right on the web, right on your web browser.
Yeah. And definitely, if you just want to experiment a little with 6809 code,
Yeah.
for no particular platform, just sort of see what the instructions do, and if you want to implement a math function or something like that, it's a cool tool to have, and you can step through the code and see how things work.
All right, our next one is from Jim Gary. It's a basic program called Flags, aptly named. This program draws the flags of various countries. So kind of a nice graphics demo for the MC10. So, yeah, that's kind of cool. Written in BASIC. Check it out.
Pretty sure it's endorsed by Dr. Sheldon Cooper.
Our next one is from Takeo Namiki. It's Gakken TV Boy 200X on Tandy TRS-80 MC10 demo. And this is a video at high speed of playing this game on the MC10. I'm not familiar with this game. Is this one of the ones that were recently discovered in Japan, or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess the Gakken TV Boy was a console, and I don't know much about it. If I'm not mistaken, I think the cartridges themselves may actually have, the CPU may have actually been on the cartridge. But anyway, apparently it had a few games, and they used the 6847, which is kind of bear baiting for Jim Gary, I think. if you want to get your game ported to the MC10, it's just have something that runs on the 6847 on another platform, and it'll eventually get his interest. But
yeah, that's pretty cool. It'd be interesting to see more come from those finds of those systems there in Japan. All right, this next one's from Paul Shoemaker. I realized with horror that I had not done a version of Poker Squares for the Dragon. So Paul has working on a port of Poker Squares for the Dragon. So this is a good video demo of the game. It's a nice looking graphics game.
Yeah, Paul seems to be focusing on card games. This Poker Squares. I don't know a lot about the game itself. I think it may be essentially a version of Solitaire, but a poker-based version of Solitaire. Maybe I should watch the video. I'd know more. I put the agenda together a little while ago, so forgive me if I'm not up on everything. But anyway, if you're the listener, you can check the show notes and get the link, and you can watch the video and just check it out. See if you are interested in playing Paul's game, whether it's on the Dragon or on the CoCo or wherever else he may have offered it.
Yep, nice looking game. All right, our next two links, well, I guess three links, but are from Nick Marentes. It's 0 Hour, a game development blog for the Tandy Color Computer 3. And he's completed Chapter 12, the EMF chamber and hydraulic lifter. Chapter 13, all levels complete. So if you're following the game development of 0 Hour, you can go out to the blog and see the latest updates. He always has some good snapshots, screenshots of the game and where it's at. So looks like he's continuing to make progress.
Yep, very good.
Next news article for me here is from Jim Gary. This is an example of AI provided in the book AI for Small Computers by John Crutch. So it looks like Jim's on an AI kick here this month, at least from the two I've reviewed now. Yeah, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, so I guess the program writes haikus.
Yeah, that's really neat. The next news article is from Guillaume Major. He is working on a new program to flash memory banks of the CoCo SDC. I must say that is really cool because it's all menu-driven. Flashing on that CoCo SDC without this it's a bit of a task. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's not the easiest. So this really makes it easy if you don't really know how to do it. He's done a lot of good support for this CoCo SDC. It's great to see the work that Guillaume's put into this thing. So, especially starting with that menu program.
Yep, it's nice to see community-oriented stuff like that continue to be developed.
All right, next news article is from John Whitworth. He has KiCad files for cartridge edge connector, gold fingers. Is this like the actual, like the gold fingers that goes in the cartridge slot?
So when you use KiCad, the process is you start with a schematic capture. You choose components when you're doing your schematic that represent the chips or whatever. But those have to be drawn for each specific chip. With basically they define what pins you're going to use. But the picture has no particular relation to physical layout at all, right? So it's completely logical, whatever. But then you go from the schematic, you go to the actual PCB layout editor, and then you kind of before you go to the PCB layout editor, when you're on the schematic, there's a step where you associate footprints with the components. So the footprints are actual physical or depictions of the physical stuff that goes on the PCB. It's fairly simple to draw footprints for parts, like for a chip or a potentiometer or a resistor or something like that. Was not particularly hard to draw them for an edge connector once you kind of figure out what you're doing. It's not, like I said, it's not an overwhelming problem, but if you're new to KiCad, it's not sitting there waiting for you. You have to come up with something. Either you can draw them yourself. It's not that difficult. You kind of have to know a couple of steps, and then you have to somewhat meticulously lay them out so that they space properly and that sort of thing. And in this case, those things are represented in files of a certain format. They're text files, so you can actually pop them up in a text editor and change them if you understand the format and you know what you want to change.
Right.
Or in this case, you can add them to your library of component footprints, and that's what he's provided here is samples of those text files. You can probably use them directly. Otherwise, you might want to make your own modifications. So if you're like me and enjoy designing PCBs, in particular if you want to have a card edge, like for a CoCo cartridge, and if you want gold applied to the fingers, these files apparently have the secret sauce for getting the gold, if that's what you want.
Well, that's great, man. That could save somebody a lot of time, for a cartridge project.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, especially if you're kind of new to KiCad, or if you're not that experimental, or whatever. It's definitely a little head start.
Oh, that's great. Next news article is from Lewin Day at Hackaday, and this is kind of cool. Using fishing wire to hold in pin headers is a nifty trick.
Yeah, it's a cool trick to have in your basket of tricks, particularly if you aren't ready to solder something in. You just want to experiment, or it might be handy if you need to solder in some way that you can't get the PCB steady long enough to solder. Those kind of things have a tendency to fall out with gravity, at least until they're soldered. In this case, I think this is more for prototyping, almost like a transitional step between a solderless breadboard and actually having a regular PCB that is intended to be soldered, but you haven't done it yet and you're experimenting, something like that. It's a neat trick.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, the next news item is King Move by John Crutch is a simple demonstration of AI programming by a friend of the show, Mr. Jim Gary. This is a YouTube video that Jim has posted showing what looks to be a checkerboard-style game written in BASIC for the MC-10. And based on what I'm seeing in the comments, it was he adapted this from a 1981 program written in BASIC by John Crutch. It was in something called Experiments in Artificial Intelligence for Small Computers.
Cool little game that's a way to entertain yourself and practice some chess strategy, or at least around a certain kind of the movements for the king, I guess. Anyway, it's kind of like I said, Jim's always good about making something useful for the MC-10 despite its limitations, and you can have a little fun with it. So it was cool.
Yeah, very nice. Kind of in the theme of his other AI game that Neil had mentioned earlier.
Introducing the hottest new program for your CoCo 3, Window Master from Circomp. Window Master allows you to incorporate commands in your basic programs to easily create point-and-click elements, like windows, pull-down menus, buttons, icons, edit fields, and mouse functions. Window Basic's enhanced full-screen editor makes writing programs easier than ever. Window Master takes full advantage of the CoCo 3's high-resolution graphics modes with up to 16 colors. Easily combine text and graphics on the same screen. And Window Master supports 5 different character fonts, each with 54 different sizes. And most existing basic and machine language programs are compatible with Window Master. Window Master requires a CoCo 3 512K recommended with 1 disk drive, high-res interface, and joystick or mouse. It comes with complete detailed documentation for just $79.95. Realize the full potential of your CoCo 3 with Window Master from Circomp, Las Vegas, Nevada.
All right, the next news item, set up and use a GoTech with the Tandy Color Computer by Retro Tech Time at YouTube. This is a YouTube video from Retro Tech Time, which is Terry Steggy. Terry is going over the GoTech floppy emulator, which connects to the CoCo via a disk controller. So you still need a vintage disk controller like an FD500, FD501, or FD502 or some other brand. But the GoTech allows you to connect to that, or physically connects to that disk controller and allows you to connect USB drives for your disk images. I have one of these. I have not played with it yet, but this looks like an interesting video for getting up to speed on how to do that.
Yeah, I don't think it should be too difficult, but I think there might be some tricks here or there that people might run into. There's a lot of flexibility in those GoTechs. And, you know, flexibility is great if you need it, and if you don't need it, sometimes it's just enough rope to hang yourself. So, yeah. And just to make a snarky comment, I recommend, obviously, that you use the hard drive specialist floppy controller. The worst name peripheral ever, I think, in some ways. Yeah. Anyway, use that and have fun with your CoCo.
Very nice. In fact, it seems to me that the GoTech, it feels almost like a CoCo SDC, but differently, because the CoCo SDC, of course, is all in one and takes an SD card, where this is a USB drive and still requires a disk controller. So, very interesting. The next news item is Turbo 9 Pipeline 6809 Benchmarking and Performance by Turbo 9 at YouTube. This is a presentation of about 40 minutes from the Turbo 9 team, which is comprised of Mr. Kevin Phillipson, Mr. Michael Rywalt, and yours truly. We presented this on December of last year to Kevin and Michael's advisors for their master's degree, and it went over so well that it's actually going to be considered credit for Kevin's master's defense presentation. So, very good work, lots of interesting information. We go into a lot of detail on how we did, well, how Mike and Kevin did the microcode assembler and the design and all this great stuff that makes the Turbo 9 what it is. And, of course, I contributed my part with the various benchmarks and other processors to show how the Turbo 9 stacks up. So, very interesting video, somewhat technical in nature, but exciting work.
Definitely cool work, and great to see that they're getting some mileage out of that for their educational progress. Definitely a cool project.
Yeah, it's definitely impressive.
Yeah.
The next news item is demo of an early prototype of my VGM converter player for the Color Computer 3 by Mr. Chet Simpson. This is yet another YouTube video where Chet demonstrates a converter. VGM, I believe, is it's an audio format, and it looks like he's playing this on the GMC, John, so this ought to be near and dear to your heart.
Yep, definitely. So VGM, I think it stands for Video Game Music. It's kind of a weird format in that it's sort of generic, where part of the format basically tells you what chip it's for. Then the guts of the format basically are timed to register updates for that particular chip, replicate the music that way. So Yeah, it's sort of a chip-specific format for the music. I mean, obviously you can take the data and convert between the formats or whatever, but it's due to the nature of how it is. It's not something you would tend to do on the fly. It's more like something that you would either play. You could play it directly on the specific type of chip, or you could convert the VGM with some sort of external process program, conversion program. You could convert it for another chip. But like I say, in this case, since he's using the GMC, I assume he's just has picked VGM files that originally targeted that SN76489 audio
Right.
chip.
Still, though, the fact that he's doing it on a CoCo and using a converter and plays on your GMC is really, really neat.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Very cool. I definitely have done a bit of that for myself, playing music. It's that's one of the things I like to do when I have a project. If you can adapt something that has a foot in another some other place where content already exists, it's nice to be able to pick that up and then display or play, in this case, that content on the CoCo. Definitely a nice.
And you don't even need to know music theory to do it, right, John?
That's right. Well, I mean, it helps to know some basic stuff, but you don't have to know what chord to play when you see a Roman numeral 4, for example, to be able to to be able to use it. It depends on what level of music theory you think you need to be involved with. See, I've got the next link here. It's another one from Jim Gary. We need to get on Jim. We need to get him on the show here. He is stealthily avoided appearing on the show as a guest for an interview, but we give him a lot of airtime for his project, so you'd think he could give us an interview. So I'll need to get on that. Anyway, this one is for something called Electronic Brain by Tim Hartnell, which is from the Giant Book of VZ200 Games, written by Tim Hartnell and Glenn Pringle. That's from a computer that uses the 6847 video chip that's used, of course, in the CoCo and the MC10, which, that seems to be one of Jim's tricks for mining programs of interest. So anyways, this is some sort of guessing game here. I think it's a version of Mastermind. Is that, this attempts to solve a Mastermind-like program. So if you enjoyed guessing games, or in particular Mastermind, you've got your MC10, you may want to check out Electronic Brain by Tim Hartnell via Jim Gary. Check it out. Thanks, Jim. All right, moving on. The next link is from me. An option for North American MC10 owners with no power supply. So you see this happen a lot. People will pick up an MC10 and it has no power supply. And then the MC10's voltage requirements are a little strange. And people sometimes are a little flummoxed by that. You can use power supplies for other systems, particularly the NES, which is a DC voltage, and it works for most things. It doesn't work for the serial port, so limited function there. I found this voltage, power adapter, linked through Amazon, and bought it and tested it. It seems to work fine for me. If you're looking for a power supply for your MC10, you may want to go ahead and check this out. Get your MC10 online and then start running some Jim Gary games and have some fun with it. So there, enjoy that. All right, let's see. The next link is a YouTube video from Erico Patricio Monteiro. This is the Sedna strain. This is work in progress of a revamped version of the basic 1K War of the Worlds. I think that's a reference to a basic source that was posted somewhere in the past couple of months. People started trying to rework it or port it to their systems, and this is Erico's attempt at doing so. So check that out, and it's always good to have more software available for us. Check it out and have some fun. Okay, here's one from Simon Jonason. It says, I'ma just dump a vid of what is 1,546 bytes of code and see if anyone can work out how. And so he's got a video on YouTube, and it's pretty impressive looking. A little graphic demo. I've got balls rotating around, and they're shiny metallic looking balls. And like I said, it's pretty impressive, and the fact that it's small is interesting.
Yeah.
So check it out. If you're curious how it works, feel free to reach out to Simon. I'm sure he'd love to explain it to you.
That's a cool demo.
Yep, very cool.
And the size of it, I mean, that's very small. I mean, you could fit that on a loader. No problem.
Cool. Very nice. Thanks, Simon.
All right, we've got another one from Jim Gary for the challenge, Variation 2 of Logicker's Christmas Challenge. There was a challenge, I think it was right around Christmas, if not on Christmas Day, from the website logicker.com, to write a program that creates a Christmas tree, a graphic Christmas tree, in as little code as possible. So this is right up Jim's alley. So in this case, he's taken like 4 different versions of that and put them all together in one piece of MC10 code. So you can see it create Christmas trees. It kind of works well because you end up seeing this big transformation as it goes through the 4 different iterations of generating a Christmas tree. Just in time for Christmas 2022, I guess.
Well, yeah. A little late. Kind of got backed up on the news stories. Hopefully we'll work through them now.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for that, Jim. All right, this next one is from Grant Leedy. It's Kokofest 2022 is free to attend. So Glenside has decided they're not going to charge admission for Kokofest 2022. I think it was like $5 before they decided to make it free. So also, if you'd like to give a presentation at Kokofest, please contact the Kokofest organizer, Grant Leedy. Another link here is we're happy to announce we have opened up registration for Kokofest 2022 in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. With free, even though the admission is free, if you're planning to have a table, you're still going to have to pay for table fees. If you want to eat the barbecue dinner, of course, that's extra. You have to pay for that. If you want to be a member of Glenside, it's, I think, $15. If you're just planning to come and look and see things and not eat, then it's totally free for you. All right, this next one is from Sheldon McDonald. He's been busy lately, and it's ice hockey for the color computer. I like the look of this game. I mean, it looks like an actual, it's kind of got some scrolling to it. It actually looks like a traditional hockey rink. So I think he's written this for, I forget which sound card he's using with this in the demo, but nice video of the game. Another good-looking game that Sheldon's working on.
Yeah, so it looks like a good hockey game. Not big on sports games, but it looks it looks like it'd be fun to play if you enjoy sports games. Good work, and great that he's sharing with the rest of us.
It's more like actual hockey than it's not like a paddle game like Pong hockey.
Yeah,
it's actually got players, and, puck action, that kind of thing. So yeah,
the graphics look nice.
Hometown Radio Shack.
Hi, I'm really enjoying playing games at the arcade. I was wondering if you had any arcade-style game controllers for the color computer.
Well, we do sell joysticks for the CoCo.
Can you describe them?
Well, they're plastic, fit in the palm of your hand. They have a plastic joystick, and there's a small push button on the side.
Do they have spring return?
Well, we also sell the deluxe joystick. It has spring return.
What's it like?
Well, they're plastic, fit in the palm of your hand. They have a plastic joystick, and there's a little push button on the side and one on the top. But we do sell some other brands, too.
What are they like?
Well, they're plastic, fit in the palm of your hand. They have plastic joystick, and there's a little push buttons on the sides.
Why play games with fragile, outdated plastic controllers? Move up to professional arcade quality with the Gamester. The Gamester is the ultimate 2-button joystick controller for your color computer, Dragon or Tandy 1000. It features a genuine arcade quality joystick with 2 large arcade quality cherry switch buttons on a single surface. It sits comfortably on your lap or on your desk. Select custom furniture quality paint or stain finishes. Choose a right or left-handed configuration. And now you have the option of light-up LED buttons. Find out why so many others are delighted with the Gamester. To build yours, simply reach out to Neil Blanchard by email. Neil@CoCoCrew.org. That's NEIL@CoCoCrew.org. For true arcade action, it's the Gamester.
Tandy keeps red, red like the brake key. Tandy keeps green, green like the TV. Tandy makes all of your dreams come true. Tandy's got the magic of CoCo too.
TRS-80 color computers are better than ever. We improved our most popular family computers with a compact white case, low-profile electric typewriter quality keyboard, and reduced the system price. Come see the new TRS-80 color computer too.
Tandy makes a product that's brand new. Tandy's got the magic. Tandy's got the magic. Tandy's got the magic of CoCo too.
All right. I don't have a whole lot of information on this next one. It's from Paul Thayer. They're Thayer brothers. It looks like a game they're working on, an escape room game called Get Me Out of Here.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it myself, but it looked like it's somewhat CoCo related.
Yeah, looks like it's got some interesting
some
graphics.
CoCo graphics there. This is going to be released January 15th. I'm not sure I ever saw a release, but maybe there is one. We'll try to get that announcement when it comes.
Yep, interesting teaser if nothing else.
The next news item is I've been working on Chaz Bin Had's Demon Attack to try to get it working using Greg Dione's compiler by Jim Gary. This is a Facebook post of a video that Jim posted. I wasn't aware that Demon Attack was available for the MC10, but it looks like it's a machine language program based on the fact that the user types Clodum to load it in. But it seems pretty impressive.
Greg Dion's got a basic compiler for the MC10 that essentially targets the MC10 to microcolor basic dialect or whatever. So it must be just trying to compile that basic source.
Yeah, it looks challenging to play.
Yeah. Runs very fast from what I can see. The next news item is playing with a pi calculator this morning. I was surprised that it stopped working after 5 significant digits by Trey Tomes. This is a still image on Facebook that Trey posted. And it's a very simple, looks like it's a 7-line basic program that does some type of successive approximation to get the compute digits of pi.
Yeah, I think basically he's running into one of the limitations of the floating point representation on the color computer, the limitations on the number of bits and that sort of thing. That's one of a weird problem a lot of people have trouble getting their heads around, is that the floating point numbers, they don't always represent every number that can easily be represented with decimal notation. And so that's why you get some of the weird things where 1.49, 1.9 or whatever instead of 2.0 answers for things. And yeah, I'm sure we've all hit that problem programming in BASIC at some point. Just kind of an example of that, and that he's doing, trying to kind of calculate pi. For me, if I want to know pi, I either hit the pi button on the calculator or I look it up. But if you actually want to compute it, there are some gotchas.
Yeah. That beautiful irrational number. The next news item is CoCo and 16 Bits by Mr. Alan Huffman. This is an article on Alan's Sabetha Software blog where he goes into detail about the CoCo and 16 Bits. I'm just taking a look at this. I see he's got a YouTube video and some sample code to explain what presumes to be showing how 16 bits are represented on a CoCo in various numeric formats.
Yeah, he's going in depth on some of the internals of the representation there. If you're at all curious, definitely spend some time reading Alan's blog there, and maybe you'll learn something about the way 16-bit numbers are represented in a CoCo.
Get it while it's hot. The next news item is new AGD converted games packs number 48 and 49 by Mr. Per Surratt. I know that Per is a proponent of the AGD game language, or I don't know what you'd call it. I guess it's some type of format where games can be written, or tool. Yeah. Anyway, he releases these every so often, I believe. I haven't tried them out, but he's doing some more.
Back before there was such a thing, we predicted that if we'd ever get AGD to be able to target the CoCo, that we'd have a huge supply of games coming, and Per and his gang have done that, and originally for the Dragon, but obviously there's similarities between the CoCo and the Dragon. Seems to be essentially no end of delivery on that promise. It's great to see them keep coming. Good stuff, Per. Thank you. One more link from Jim Gary. Has been working on Jazz's dropship. I'm assuming, not 100% sure, but I think Jazz is the same as Darren Ottery. And so he's working on a color basic version of dropship, which I guess was written originally for the MC10. It's nice to see this community work going on, working on improving this game, which looks pretty cool already. Check it out. There's 2 links there. One shows the original dropship. Tell us what you think. Eager to hear more. Again, good work, Jim, and thank you, Darren, also for your contribution there of the original game. Very cool. All right, moving on. This is kind of a random one from Hackaday. Al Williams at Hackaday writes about Lisp in 436 bytes. And I think this probably targets the PC, but it's a boot sector program, so you can format a floppy disk for the PC and have this in the boot sector. And so it'll boot directly into Lisp, implemented in less than 512 bytes, specifically 436 bytes. So if you can implement Lisp for the PC in 436 bytes, surely you can do so for the CoCo. And I think there are Lisp implementations for the CoCo, but I don't know if any of them are very popular. And it seems like Lisp has enough popularity in the world that we ought to have a good functional one in the CoCo world. So here's your challenge. If they can do it on the PC and fit in the boot sector, we ought to be able to get me something that fits on a CoCo disk that'll run a good Lisp. So do that, and I'll get my parentheses keys ready, and maybe we can write some Lisp programs. So, all right. Well, hopefully some of you know enough Lisp to appreciate the parentheses joke. So here's one. It's a little bit philosophical. Specifically, it's an article from Pocket Worthy. It's about writing, like writing, English, like books, stories, that sort of thing. It says that you can't rely on inspiration, so essential writing advice from J.G. Ballard. I honestly don't know who Ballard is. Apparently, he was an extraordinarily prolific writer. Anyway, it's got some simple advice here, which basically amounts to, if you want to be a writer, then you got to write stuff. And kind of focusing down to, producing stuff, and basically saying that to start small and work your way out, I think is kind of the gist of it. But I included it here as inspiration for people that want to write. They want to be authors of CoCo software. If you want to be an author of CoCo software, well, you got to write CoCo software. So take that piece of advice and go out and write something, and write whatever you can. If you can't write what you're dreaming of, then write what you know how to do and work out from there, or write something that you don't quite know how to do yet, but work your way up to it. Inspiration is key. Well, perspiration is key, I think, is the point I think they were trying to emphasize here. So get out and do some stuff. So anyway, hopefully the message is well taken. And the final link I've got, also somewhat philosophical or practical, or I don't know. I'm sure it applies to some people in the community, probably me and a few others. How to ethically get rid of your unwanted stuff, which the picture shows. It looks like my storage area. A bunch of boxes, and old tires, or an old TV, some kind of game board, whatever. Anyway, some a little advice on how to get rid of your stuff, whether you should donate and what you should donate, and all that kind of things. Maybe there's no practical advice here for retro computer people, but maybe it's the message here is probably don't be a hoarder. which probably doesn't probably doesn't inspire a lot of people in the retro world, but maybe it should, judging from what I've seen, because I think a lot of us have a little bit of a hoarder gene when it comes to the retro stuff. I know I do. But anyway, again, hopefully it's well taken. So clean up your stuff, and maybe you'll be happier for it. All right. Well, on that note, that is the end of our news segment. So why don't we take another little break, and then we'll be back with some feedback.
All you've wanted in a computer and more. The TDP System 100, a complete system ready to plug into your color TV set. It features 16K of memory, expandable to 32K at any TDP service center nationwide, and expand from 32 to 64K through Southco, the Georgia distributor. Raised keyboard with gold contacts. Standard basic built-in from Microsoft. RS-232 interface device built right in. RF interface for direct hookup to any TV built in. Programming manuals included at no charge. Bust-out game pack included at no charge. Joysticks included at no charge. The suggested retail price is only $379 from Southco Sales Corporation.
It's Operation, Milton Bradley's goofy game for dopey doctors. Now for the Tandy Color Computer 3. The operating table plugs into your color computer's cartridge slot. The computer assigns each player which procedure they are to perform.
Remove funny bone.
Careful. If you touch the sides... You blew it, Charlie. Funds are automatically removed from your account, and you earn malpractice demerits. Your colleagues are suddenly busy at lunch. Next.
Take out wrenched ankle.
A winner. Funds are transferred to your account, and you earn malpractice insurance points. Enjoy the ride home in your BMW 4 Series convertible.
I hate you.
Operation, a game for your color computer from Milton Bradley.
Operation is for entertainment purposes only. Operation should not be considered as any form of medical advice or medical training. Milton Bradley does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in his products. Reliance on any information provided by Operation is solely at your own risk. 128K Tandy Color Computer 3 with composite or RGB monitor required. Drink responsibly.
All right, CoCo Cruisers. Now it's time for some feedback. So we've got a couple items today. Let's see, the first item comes from Mr. L. Curtis Boyle, a notable CoCo community light. He says, I'm hoping that with some of the replacement motherboards, cases, etc. projects being worked on, that people who want to enjoy running a real CoCo will see prices go down to acceptable levels for these machines. Undoubtedly, he's referring to our host discussion with our predictions for the CoCo market. And I guess this is his, or at least hopeful prediction, and that maybe the market to prices will stabilize a bit, and normal people will be able to continue enjoying the machine in some form, whether it's a recreation or the originals, or hopefully both, depending on whatever you're looking for. So definitely agree. That'd be nice if that's what happens, Curtis. So let's hope that we see some sanity return to the market, huh? All right. And so the next item comes from Mr. John Strong. And obviously this relates to my little text segment describing my joystick tester. He says, did you think about using LM3914 /bar display driver for your joystick tester? No, I did not. I did, after your question, I did specifically look at the data sheet there. It certainly could be used. It would make the board a little bigger, but not greatly so. I'm not sure you could hook that up in the same way that I've configured my board, where you go one direction and the bar display goes one direction and then off in the middle and it goes in the other direction. Maybe you could, but it might require even more hardware, so make it even a little bit bigger. I don't know. It's certainly something that could be done, and depending on exactly how you wanted your output to look, it would be suitable for that. I will note that in the data sheet for that part, there was a equivalent circuit diagram that seemed to use essentially the same technique of wiring up resistor dividers, voltage dividers, and feeding into series of comparators to light the various lights. So it's sort of related technology in that sense. So cool. Anyway, thanks for the feedback, John. Good to hear from you. All right. Well, that's all the feedback we have this month. Let's take another break here, and then we'll be back with a host discussion and the rest of the show.
This month in CoCo History.
Welcome to This Month in CoCo History, where we explore events in the life of our favorite home computer. I'm Boise Pete, and this month we go back 37 years to 1985 and a drawing program for the color computer. On page 17 of the February 1985 issue of Undercolor magazine is a full-page advertisement for VisiDraw 1.0, an interactive drawing board and graphic display processor. Requiring 64K disc or tape and 2 joysticks, or 1 mouse and 1 joystick, VisiDraw produced, quote, amazing presentation quality graphics, end quote. Action icons let you select lines, rectangles, circles, arcs, and fills. Objects can be copied and moved around the canvas, and magnify mode lets you zoom in to do fine touch-up work. Airbrushes are available with patterns, and 14 fonts are available with italics and bold variations. VisiDraw sold for $49.95 and included printer support for the Radio Shack Line Printer 7, Epson, and Gemini 10-10X printers. Also offered in the ad was VisiDump, a screen dump utility for $19.95, and VidX, a video digitizer that connected to the serial I/O port of the CoCo for $99.95. All of these products were available through Graphics of West Mifflin, Pennsylvania. Today, CoCo Max is probably the most well-remembered CoCo graphics program from back in the day, but VisiDraw reminds us that there were other offerings that gave the CoCo user the ability to draw and design graphics with ease.
And that's This Month in CoCo History.
Is your finger worn out from pressing the joystick fire button? Then you don't know Jack. Jack, the joystick alternative controller. Attach Jack to your color computer joystick port, then connect any Atari-style joystick. Plus, Jack features a unique rapid-fire option. Save your fingers, save your wrists. Get Jack for just $22.50. And what about pausing that game? It's easy with Stop. Stop plugs into your CoCo's cartridge slot, multi-pack interface, or Y cable. Simply press the button to immediately halt your computer, and press it again to resume. Works with all software. Stop is just $14.95. Jack and Stop are both fine products from Vortex, Merrifield, Virginia.
Check and money order accepted. American funds only. Postage and handling not included in list price. Canadian orders add $4. Allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. Is payroll processing a major hassle for your small or medium business? Introducing Option 4 Canadian payroll software from YGS. Option 4 handles all provinces and territories and makes it easy to calculate wages, duty allocations, and variable pay rates. Option 4 can be customized to work with any printer. Easily print batch checks, detailed pay stubs, and payroll reports. Option 4 automatically validates employee social insurance numbers. Maintain multiple payroll databases and rest easy knowing that all data is password protected. And the included well-organized and easy-to-follow manual will have you quickly making payroll entries. Option 4. Simply the best Canadian payroll software available for the color computer.
Requires a 32K color computer with extended color basic and disk drive. Option 4 from YGS, Brecken, Ontario.
All right, CoCo Maniacs, CoCo Cruisers. Now it's time for the host to discuss a topic amongst ourselves. Let's see, we reached out through our current news and other things, and one thing that stands out to us a little bit is the announcement that Kokofest is going to be free to attend. And that's fine. That's great. Save people a little money. But it kind of raises the question, if Kokofest is free, why do you need to pay to be a Glenside member? Traditionally, the membership of Glenside, at least for the several years, maybe 10 years or more, has just been essentially part of the paying to go to Kokofest, is you get to be a Glenside member. And if you're not going to pay to go to Kokofest, you can still pay to be a Glenside member, but why? What do you get from it? Well, let's see, the obvious thing, I guess, is you get to vote for the officers of the Glenside Club. So your president and treasurer, secretary, vice president. Is that a big deal? I don't know. I guess it's a matter of perspective, and I'm not sure. Honestly, for the most part, Kokofest happens. Kokofest is probably going to continue to happen. Does it matter who's in charge? I'm not sure. You say you want to support the club. I guess that's the thing, is make sure there's still money to have Kokofest. That funding has to come from somewhere. So if you enjoy having Kokofest, if they're not taking income from from the actual attendees, then if you don't join, how's they going to get to the money? Obviously, there's money coming from the vendors, but there's only so many of those. What do you guys think? What is the reason to pay to join Glenside if Kokofest is free?
I would say to keep the show running. Eventually, I think they would run out of money. I don't think the vendors there's enough vendors there to cover all the costs of the the venue and the food.
Well, that's certainly true. The cost you pay for the meal does not actually cover the full cost of that meal. That's charged by the venue.
Mm-hmm.
So the club is subsidizing part of that cost.
Right.
So that money has to come from somewhere.
They make a lot of money off the auction.
They do make money off the auction. That's true. And traditionally that's true. My understanding is the most recent Kokofest also liquidated a whole lot of stuff they've held on to over the years. So I'm not sure. I don't know if the auction is going to continue to be a moneymaker for Glenside. I assume it probably will have some strong revenue, but I don't know for sure. I mean, I know that Glenside's finances have been fairly strong in recent years, enough that they could underwrite Kokofest for some period of time on their own. But as Neil points out, that will not last forever. What about the voting? Is that important enough to matter? If you're at all questioning, should I pay for a Glenside membership, is being able to vote for the officers a seller for you?
If you want to support the club, then you can do that by purchasing a membership. What do you get for that membership? I can't really say that there's any real benefit to it.
Yeah, the club continues, hopefully.
Yeah, you hope the club continues. But I mean, going back to voting, there's kind of this permanent shadow people involved that have been involved for decades that never, don't hold elected positions. There's always this influence that can't be removed from office, if you will.
I agree.
So I don't know that there's a lot of benefit to electing people. There's only so much they're going to be able to do.
The sole purpose of Glenside these days to exist is to put on Kokofest.
I agree.
That is their sole purpose.
We saw a post just this weekend from one of the Glenside officers suggesting that Glenside should have some greater long-term purpose, hinting that there might be finances for some perpetual entity that somehow has a greater purpose than putting on Kokofest. I don't know how realistic that is.
Like I said, Glenside exists for the fest. I don't understand why they flipped it. It used to be that if you attended the Glenside Color Computer, the CoCofest rather, that you became a member of the Glenside Color Computer Club for what that's worth. 4 newsletters a year? I mean, and I'm a historian on the board of directors, right. I think that they should go back to, you attend the fest, you get a membership. Membership aside, that's fine, I guess. But they've got plenty of money in the coffers. Like I said, the auctions bring in enough money, I think, from what I understand, to pay for things. It's just a hard sell to say, I should join the Glenside Color Computer Club outside of attending a Kokofest every year. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's how I became a member, was just by going to Kokofest, and I was a member. But I'm not sure how much money we ever got from attendance per se anyway. So maybe it's always been the membership. But again, the membership was kind of mixed in. If you attended, you were a member. So I'm not. It's a little hard to know, where the breakdown was between money for attendance versus money for membership. So I don't know. I will say for me, what was the admission price? A few dollars. The cost of admission didn't cover my first 2 hours of travel to get there,
Right.
And it came nowhere near the cost even of the room, even with a discount from Glenside. The room cost a lot more than the entry price. So, I mean, maybe there's a few people that already live in the Chicago area that might walk in off the street that are going to be saving a few dollars by not having to pay the admission fee. But I would think there's no great savings for most people attending by not having to pay an admission fee.
It's really not clear what the motivation was to do that. I mean, it's fine to do it, of course, but I don't really know. It is strange that it was always the membership was always included, and now it's kind of made separate.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like some people see this big pot of money and they're trying to figure out ways they can spend it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But to us, it's always been about putting on Kokofest.
That's it.
Doing anything else, you can alienate some of your membership.
Yeah, I'm with Boise. I think that Glenside's purpose ultimately has been, and in my opinion continues to be, to make sure that Kokofest happens every year. And anything beyond that is kind of a relic of the past. I mean, Glenside doesn't have a BBS. If they did, who would log into it and for what? They have the newsletter kind of got a lot of contributions there for a little while, part of last year. And then when was the last time we saw one? I'm not sure. Even if you did get one, generally speaking, the newsletter, any newsletter, is mostly going to cover stuff that's already happened and stuff that's already covered on our show and on other shows around the CoCo community now. And most of that's collecting news from, Facebook or YouTube or
that's right.
Whatever else. So
the newsletter is pretty much a rehash of what has already been put in real time on social media networks related to CoCo. Other than the president's platen, which someone, I guess Jim Brain would be the one, and currently the president would have a say here. He could write something. Other than that, and maybe some of the voices of the other leadership in the newsletter, there's really nothing that I see that is original there, other than the fact that they've been doing the newsletter for 20-something years, and it's sort of like the last Kokofest, right? They just keep doing it because it's sort of tradition.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, it's probably unfair to say there's nothing new there. There's certainly some of the more recent newsletters have had some lengthy articles contributed. What the motivation was or what the repeatability of that is, I think still kind of remains a little unclear, especially since, like I said, we haven't seen the newsletter for a little while now.
Personally, I don't go to the Glenside newsletter to get the latest CoCo news. Back 20 years ago, 25 years ago, sure, but not now.
Well, I'm not sure even 20 years ago I was doing that, but it might occasionally remind me of the CoCo hobby if I'd somehow gotten distracted elsewhere or whatever. But, I mean, that was also when they would send me the PDF or even send me paper mail.
Well, I think we all agree that we want to support, we want Kokofest to continue to happen. And absolutely. We are all happy to support that. But if the organization is going to start doing other things with our money, that makes it more challenging to, have a membership.
Right. Well, especially, like I said, I was happy to pay for Kokofest, that $15 or whatever it was, the drop in the bucket. Spent more than that on most evening meals. And it's like vacation for me anyway, so I don't mind spending for that. But I don't know, I've always thought the Let's Make Kokofest Free was, I guess, well-intentioned, but kind of, I never really saw the point. And especially, I mean, it's not free. If you want to have a table, you've got to pay there. And certainly, understandably, if you're going to have a meal, the part that they've made free doesn't seem to benefit the people very much.
Right. I agree.
Well, that's it. All those
club at
funds
all.
should benefit the members, right? And it doesn't seem like ideas that are floating around are really doing that. I think some people want to turn it into a benevolence fund, and I don't agree with that. I think it should be. It's a guild for people that like the color computer, right?
That's right.
Absolutely. And like I said, I feel like Glenside's purpose ought to be to put on the Kokofest.
That's it. That's all they ought to focus on.
I'm not going to say that's the only thing they could possibly do, but I think the more you deviate from that, the more off course you've gone. And especially when you have thoughts about, let's start a fund for an organization that's going to be doing something in 30 years when we're all dead. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never been able to get a kid interested in the CoCo beyond here, come and play this game of Starblaze that I've already got set up here, and the kid might play it for a few minutes, but I don't think we're building a lot of young people that are going to be listening to this podcast or any of the other shows or spending a lot of time going to Kokofest or whatever, unless we drag them. And we're a little bit off course, I think, here, a little bit off the topic, but if you're paying for a membership for Glenside is not primarily to support Kokofest, it's hard to know why you would pay for a membership at all. I think that's the point we're trying to make, or at least I'm kind of asking about. Do we agree? Is that kind of where we're at?
I agree with that.
How about Neil? Yes. You're the voice of the people, Neil. What do you think?
I agree.
I guess that's it. I don't see a lot of benefit to free admission to Kokofest. And if it hurts anything, then it probably was not worthwhile to do so.
Right.
Does it hurt anything? I don't know. But, I mean, we are having to pay nowadays. You're paying for MailChimp. You're paying for Open Office for editing the newsletter. You're paying for accounting software these days.
It adds up.
I'm not sure what else they're paying for, office supplies or something like that. That money's got to come from somewhere. I mean, right now, we've got a build-up from the past few years where, we didn't pay that much at the previous site, and kind of built up a little bubble there. I think this last Kokofest, they had a pretty good auction, but part of that was because I think they were selling off a lot of surplus stuff that they had held on to in the various garages or whatever. I don't know that they'll do that, be able to continue to do that. From what I hear, there were some cool things in the most recent auction, but there was also a lot of 486 PCs and that sort of thing that, as a CoCo person, don't really hold a lot of appeal to me. So if we're relying on that to fund our activities going forward, I'm not sure that's going to do it. But I don't know. On the other hand, to play devil's advocate, I mean, we're kind of debating this stuff as if it's our decision to make, but none of us are currently president or treasurer or secretary or anything of Glenside.
Well, I'm a historian, so I'm technically hold some position, but yeah.
I mean, I guess that makes a case. You join the club so that you can influence and vote on who is the president or whatever. Yeah. I guess that's all I've come down to, is that the only reason I see there's a good argument for paying for a membership is so you can vote for the officers. Is that important to you or not? Well, that's your personal decision. I don't know. I'm probably have said enough to make a lot of people mad already.
Why not?
None of this is intended to make anybody mad. Maybe express a little concern or just express our opinions. Hopefully that's still allowed. Anyway, with that said, what about the rest of you? Anybody else have any, can I hand any of you some rope to hang yourselves with? Anyone else got something else to say? I do hope Glenside continues. I hope they agree with us that putting on Kokofest is their primary mission, if not their only mission. And I hope that they continue to do that for a long time to come. And so we certainly want to see Kokofest continue, and whatever concerns we've expressed are based on that. And again, we're not trying to make anyone angry. If you are concerned or angered or upset by whatever we've said, feedback at CoCoCrew.org. And that's FEEDBACK at CoCocrew.org. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. All right, well, I think that's all we've got for this discussion. Why don't we draw this to a close, and we'll be back with the rest of the show.
Great moments in history.
Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you.
Mr. Bell, it worked. I heard every word.
Duh, you were supposed to. I called you in here because I just received the newest Radio Shack flyer in today's mail.
Look for your Radio Shack flyer in this week's mail. Save 25 to 50% on select items throughout the store.
Mr. Bell, where are you going?
Why, to Radio Shack, of course, for big savings.
What about the telephone?
If anyone calls, take a message.
Radio Shack, America's technology store.
If you use your color computer for spreadsheets, accounting, and other numeric-intensive applications, then you need the Numberjack from HJL Products. The Numberjack is a numeric keypad that connects to your color computer in just 5 minutes. No soldering, no drilling, and no special tools required. In addition to the 10 number keys, the Numberjack features 4 cursor keys, clear, decimal point, and 4 standard math keys. The Numberjack has a low-profile ABS enclosure with the same full-travel key switches used in the HJL 57 keyboard. The Numberjack is built so well it carries a full 1-year warranty. Cut the tedium out of numeric data work with the Numberjack from HJL Products, a division of Touchstone Technologies.
Welcome, CoCo Cruisers. This is John Linville, and I'm here again with this month's tech segment. Today we're going to talk a little bit about errors in CoCo-related schematics. And I'm sure probably any amount of schematics have a certain level of errors in them, but it seems like, and of course it's anecdotally, but it seems like CoCo schematics, or schematics in the CoCo community, have, I don't know, maybe more than I would expect. So recently I was looking through some schematics that I found on the Color Computer Archive, and found something for, the document is for the Speech Systems Precision Time Module. This is Precision Time Module Operating Manual. And that includes a schematic diagram of the card. The card basically is it's a CoCo cartridge that contains a MC146818 timer chip, which is the same timer chip that's used in the real-time clock chip that's used in PCs. It doesn't really matter, but the point being is that I was looking through the schematic and just, basically for educational purposes, kind of taking a look, and something caught my eye and got to look in a little closer. And there's errors in this published schematic, and it's like, well, that's not the first time I've heard of that. And I'm sure I've seen them elsewhere, and I don't have a lot of other specific examples offhand. But I do know, after speaking to Mark Marlette, that he's referenced that long ago, probably back in the 90s, that he went through the trouble of going through the kind of famous Tony DiStefano full turn of the screw, and documenting a variety of errors in the schematics associated with that. And so I don't know if this is some relic of Tony's practices, or if he was somehow reflecting something else, or maybe it was just the time. I have looked at a fair amount of arcade schematics from kind of the 80s era, including using those for hardware repairs and such, and I don't remember finding a lot of errors in those, but I didn't know quite as much when I was doing more of that, so it's possible I'd overlook some. Anyway, I don't know, it seems a little strange to find errors in schematics. It's kind of like, it should be the Bible, and so I don't know, I feel like I find them a lot in the CoCo community, so maybe it's worth discussing a little bit. I don't think this will get super technical in this section. I'd actually thought about making this a discussion with the other hosts, and we may still do a variation of that. We'll see, depending on how well I cover it here, I guess. But let's just talk about it a bit, and see what pops out. So, I guess the real point comes to why are you looking at schematics in the first place? And there could be a variety of reasons, and I'm thinking the main ones probably break down along about 3 basic groups. And one is basically the same as what I was doing, looking at the precision time module document. And it's just curiosity. Like, oh, I didn't realize that existed. Wonder what they've got to say about it. What did the card do? Oh, here's some hardware. How did that work? Or a schematic, how did that work? How do they hook it up? That sort of thing. So, if you're in that mode, you're probably not expecting to find errors if you're trying to learn. So, I guess that's something to keep in mind if you are looking at schematics in a learning capacity, especially around the color computer stuff. It's probably a good idea to keep your eyes open for the possibility that there could be errors. Some errors could be intentionally misleading. Some of them could just be dumb things, whatever. But I don't want to ruin anybody from looking at schematics, but just, it's a caveat emptor or buyer beware kind of thing. And nowadays, most people are looking at free schematics that someone else scanned anyway. So you didn't buy it, so you better beware. Anyway, so maybe you're just curious in a learning capacity looking at schematics. Just be aware that the schematics may not tell the whole story. Or they could tell you the wrong story. The other thing you might be doing, depending on what schematics you've got and what your projects are, you might be looking for basically programmer level documentation for a piece of hardware. Just figure out how it's hooked up. Schematics are, a good way, especially if you have no other information. They're a good way to figure out how addresses are assigned and where hardware is going to live in the computer's memory. I wish I could say that was somehow less likely to be errors. If anything, that might actually be more likely to be error prone for the schematics, at least in certain kind of cases. In particular, the precision time module schematics I'm talking about. The errors I found there were related to addressing, so that's essentially programmer documentation. So, again, beware, particularly if you're trying to figure out how to program your precision time module from speech systems. Instead of relying strictly on the schematics, feel free to email me and reach out, and I'll talk you through what I've discovered. Anyway, so the other reason that I can think of why you'd be looking at schematics is probably what a lot of people would think of as the primary reason. That's because you're trying to repair the hardware. Something's gone wrong, and some parts not working quite right. It's doing something funny, and you're trying to figure out what hardware is related and what might be broken. Maybe you're testing a few things, whatever. So hardware repair, or maybe you're trying to reproduce the hardware, and you need to produce your own schematic or as part of the production process. Obviously, if you're at that level, hopefully you're like me, or maybe better than me, be able to look at the parts and see how they appear to be connected on the schematic, and it should stand out to you if, no, that's not going to work, or if something seems broken or wrong or whatever. So what kind of errors should we be aware of? What are you looking for? Obviously, you could be looking for simple or careless mistakes, things where a connection is shown from one part to the wrong pin on a different part. Or if something that shows up and, U5 is a certain part on the card and you look on the actual hardware and it's a different part number, so the wrong part number. Sometimes you'll have signals on a schematic that are mislabeled. They connect to something else. Often that would be like a spelling error or something like that. So again, to think about Mark Marlette, there's kind of an old a little joke going back where there was a period of time where he would reflexively refer to the SLIN-B signal that's on the CoCo bus, and he would say cell-B instead of SLIN-B, which is pretty easy. You can see how you'll drop a letter and transpose a couple others, you end up with a different acronym. So somebody could have done that on a schematic. It's not impossible. But that sort of thing would be something that's just a careless mistake that just could end up in a schematic. I'm talking just a minute when you're more likely to see that sort of thing. What's something else, another kind of mistake you might see? And I said, which are all to some degree going to be something that doesn't match the hardware. So you might have a schematic that would essentially it could be made and produced into something that would essentially work, but it might not match the hardware you have. And it might be, because of a mismatch between what you've actually got in your hands and what the schematic was designed for or produced for. It could be that the schematic matches, an earlier version of the hardware, or maybe a later version that hadn't been released or that wasn't released. It could just be that you got version 5, the schematic for version 5, and you actually have version 3 of the hardware, stuff like that. In that sense, it's not really an error in the schematic, it just doesn't match your hardware. But you could have that sort of thing. The other thing that you'll see sometimes, some places actually practice to go through and produce things according to an original design, and the schematic probably matches the original design. And then for some reason, there's a part on the schematic that was difficult to acquire or expensive or otherwise got replaced with a different part. And that's typically going to be something, like a passive part, like a resistor or a capacitor or something like that, a different value, or maybe somebody combined 2 resistors and put them on the same PCB in place of what was designed as one. And that's not super likely, but it could happen. You may have a schematic that is for an as specified, but you're in real life you deal with as built. So they may have built the basic design, but with a slight set of differences based on substitution of parts or something like that. Or, you could have jumpers that are cut on the PCB where the schematic matches where the jumper originally went, but something on the, when they manufacture the PCB, they may have actually cut a jumper for some reason, or if not installed one, that sort of thing. It's possible. So you could have things that where what you actually have in your hand doesn't match with the schematic. Again, it's I'm not sure that's really an error in the schematic per se, but it's kind of an error by the time it got to your hand. It doesn't match what's actually real. But so that's possible, and so that's more like you just kind of get a mismatch between the schematic and what you're actually dealing with. You still need to be able to handle that kind of situation because it's definitely a real life thing that happens sometimes. The third type of error that I've kind of came up with is I'm calling just basically a not even close. And so you have a schematic that's clearly marked a certain way and it's just wrong. Or alternatively, you might have a schematic that basically has a magic component on the schematic that's just a black box of some sort. It doesn't actually match the hardware that's on the card or something like that. Maybe not totally an error, but it doesn't help. So, not entirely right. I don't have a good example of this, but I'm sure this is something that you might run across where it just says, these signals go here into this box, and these signals come out of that box, and they go off to do these things here. And so it's essentially a partial schematic at that point. It just says, well, the rest of the circuit works like this, but the black box, we don't know how that works. So, again, I don't have a specific example of a schematic like that, but I'm sure they're out there. Probably even in the CoCo world. Anyway, so why do we have all these kind of errors floating around? Again, particularly with CoCo-related schematics, at least that's the way it seems to me. I don't know, it might be just schematics of this era, or it might be just schematics in general. I tend to trust the schematics when it comes to hardware that I actually use. I tend to trust that. I trust the schematics and then the manuals and then the code. Or whatever I've actually got. But it could be that that's just a different experience from reality, or something that's more appropriate for modern times than it was for the 80s. I don't know. Let's talk about what are the possible reasons you might have errors in the schematics. And so number one reason for why there might be an error, I say, is carelessness. And so just like any other human endeavor, sometimes people kind of rush something out and it's kind of good enough, and if they don't get called on it, they don't fix it. And it just goes on. And so that may account for some of the schematics in the CoCo world, particularly because a lot of those schematics are sourced from, magazine articles from Rainbow or Color Computer Magazine or whatever. Those people producing those articles had deadlines to meet. They weren't using WYSIWYG graphic software to generate those things back then. So they were passing off maybe even hand-drawn schematics to a publisher who then had to typeset them or whatever. Errors could creep in the reproduction of those schematic drawings. Anything like that might happen. I guess that should be in the type of errors too. You could have reproduction errors where what was actually handed in to whoever produced the document, whoever actually produced the outgoing graphics for the schematic may have just screwed up. So anyway, so simple carelessness, that probably accounts for most of the errors you're going to find in schematics, especially if you find schematics on somebody's web page or something like that. If there's an error, it's probably just, somebody had an oopsie and that's why it's there. So carelessness. And then next I had deadlines. So basically carelessness, I just don't care. And the deadlines are, well, I would care more if I had more time. So these are both kind of just human reasons why there might be errors in the schematic. So the somewhat more sinister, possibly more obvious reason that there could be errors in the schematics is that it could be intentional. Somebody may have been trying to obfuscate the work. They may not have actually wanted you to fully comprehend the low-level details of the design. So why is that? Well, so it could be a form of copy protection, even though, it seems kind of silly if you're trying to copy or trying to protect your design, then don't publish the schematics, but maybe they felt that they had to publish a certain level of schematics, or maybe it was even a trap in some cases to see who would copy it. But anyway, yeah, copy protection, so it's like, well, here's how it works, but it actually isn't quite right. So if you produce something and it's screwed up, I know you copied this. Again, it's a little convoluted, and I'd rather you just not give me the schematics at all if that's what you're trying to do, but it was a different time. So who knows what exactly the purpose was. Normally you'd give out schematics for something like, helping people fix their cards, for example. And so if they're wrong, they're not going to help very much in fixing somebody else's hardware, so it seems kind of disingenuous at least. But maybe that's what they're doing. The other one I could think of is, again, a very human kind of thing. I don't know for sure that this ever happened, but it's possible somebody could produce schematics that are intentionally wrong. Maybe it's like a public image promotion. So, see, I'm such a nice guy, I provide the schematics. Here, look at all this baffling amount of drawings and technical documentation. You can't possibly understand this. If you don't know how it works, don't ask. Because I'm such a genius. Did this happen? I don't know. Does it seem possible? It seems possible to me, especially considering some of the egos that we see on certain people who are still around the CoCo community from back in the day. I can certainly see how there'd be others that had that kind of endearing quality, shall we say. But I don't know. So there could be somebody who intentionally created wrong schematics that were just wrong in a way that they thought was somehow amusing or funny. Who knows? Point is, there are schematics out in the CoCo community that are not correct, or at least not strictly correct. Some of them will be helpful depending on your purpose. If you're trying to learn in sort of a generally how do they do that? And, if you're not, if you don't know exactly what every part does in the first place, then knowing exactly where every connection goes probably doesn't help much anyway, but you might still get the gist of how something worked and kind of satisfy some curiosity. And in some cases, depending on the errors or the obfuscation, the schematics may provide enough information to suggest or at least verify some programming information, things like base addresses and at least what other parts are available on the board and how are they interconnected in a general sense. part B connects to a register on part A, that sort of thing. And again, if you are trying to repair some hardware, if you have a wrong schematic, well, I'd help you. But depending on what the errors are, if the actual problem you're trying to repair is on a part of the schematic that's actually correct, then you still could be helpful. So I guess the real point is, if you're using the schematics available in the community, you need to be sure that you yourself are competent to be able to evaluate the schematics and to convince yourself that the part that you're using is correct enough. All right, well, that's probably all I've got to ramble on about for now. So let me know if you've come across schematics in the CoCo community or any of the retro communities that have errors in them, particularly if you think they were somehow intentional, or whether or not you think they were intentional. I'd still love to hear about it. If the errors are there, if you didn't know there were errors in some of these things, what do you think of that? Why do you think that they were put there? If you do know of some errors in the community, in the schematics in the community, what do you think? How did they get there? What was the purpose? That's your assignment. Reach out to us at feedback, FEEDBACK, at CoCoCrew.org, CoCoCrew.org. Feedback at CoCoCrew.org. All right, well, I'd love to hear from you, and stay CoCoing and keep working on some hardware and software and cool projects for the CoCo. And, well, that's all I got. CoCo forever. All right, thanks.
The dragon is back with 64K. Hey la, dragon's back. Cereal port in the case is great. Hey la, dragon's back. ROMs for two kinds with basic. New ways for you to be creative. Fully compatible with the Dragon 32.
Dragon Data Limited is proud to present the new Dragon 64. It has twice the memory of the Dragon 32, featuring a real serial communications port.
Get your Dragon 64 today. Hey la, Dragon's back.
Dragon Data Limited.
Kenton Electronics provides real interfaces for your color computer. Our SCSI interface is compatible with LR Tech, OWL-DOS, RGB DOS, HDOS, and OS 9, and features a 28-pin ROM socket. Just $89 or $119 with real-time clock. Add real RS-232 serial ports to your CoCo with the Kenton Dual COM board, featuring two 6551 ACIAs, two independent RS-232 channels, jumper selectable for up to 4 channels with a second board, and a 28-pin ROM socket. Ultra low power draw, and it's a great replacement for the Radio Shack RS-232 pack. Single port, just $74. Dual port, $89. All of Kenton's products are mil-spec quality and carry a 90-day warranty. Both the Dual COM board and SCSI interface work directly with the Y-cable or multi-pack interface, and Kenton products are all made right here in the USA. Kenton Electronics, Tonawanda, New York.
Welcome back to Neil's Corner on episode 81 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. Well, once again, I've got a new game to review this month. It's amazing for a computer that is 40 plus years old, we still have new software being written for it. I'm sure all of you have heard of the new phenomenon game called Wordle. Now we have a CoCo version of it called CoCodle, brought to you by the legendary Rick Adams, who gave us Temple of Rom, Shanghai, and more recently, Bomb Threat and a few others. On a side note, Rick coded this game entirely in BASIC. He told me he was looking for an excuse to do a basic coding project, and a Wordle game was just the perfect fit. CoCodle requires a Color Computer 3 with a minimum of 128K of memory. For those of you who have not heard of Wordle, it's a simple word game. Your job is to guess a 5-letter word in 6 attempts. Each time you play the game, a 5-letter word is picked at random that you must figure out. You start off entering your own 5-letter word, and the game will tell you what letters are used in the word generated that you are supposed to figure out. Letters will light up yellow if they are used in the chosen word. However, that doesn't mean they're in the correct spot. When they light up green, that means the letter is in the correct spot for the word you are trying to solve. You get a higher score for guessing the word in the least amount of attempts, and also the lowest time spent. Another cool feature Rick coded in the game is at the top of the screen you see the alphabet. Each time you use a letter and it's not used in the word you're trying to guess, it will disappear. This helps immensely for guessing what letters to try out next. I must admit, when I heard Rick was working on this game, I was excited because I've been a closet Wordle fan for the past month. I'm not too hardcore and post my daily stats on social media pages like others, though. The only difference with the online web version versus the CoCo version is you can only play once a day on the web, as a new word is generated each day. Whereas the CoCo version, after you win or lose, Rick gives you the option to play again. I've noticed L. Curtis Boyle recently ported this game to Nitrous 9 Basic 09. So for all of you OS 9 fans out there, you can install this on your hard drive setup and play in a separate window while working on your spreadsheets. Also, Jim Gary is in the process of porting Rick's game to the MC10, and he is calling it Mike Hodel. I have to mention, the color and graphics are crisp and it runs at a very fast clip. You'd never know this game is running entirely in BASIC. Just goes to show Rick's coding skills and how advanced our BASIC is on the CoCo. Great job, Rick. Thanks for giving us Wordle to play on our beloved CoCo 3. As of now, this game is available for download on the main Facebook CoCo group. Rick's RS-DOS version and Curtis's Nitrous 9 Basic 09 version. I am very sure in the next few weeks it will be available on the CoCo Archives website. You can also reach out to Rick for a copy as well. Just before I end this segment, I'll leave you with a cool factoid for those of you who don't know the history of Wordle. A guy named Josh Wardle initially created the game for himself and his partner to play, eventually making it public in October 2021. The game gained a large amount of popularity in December 2021 after Wardle added the ability for players to copy their daily results as emoji squares, which people then shared on their social media pages. The Wordle game was purchased by the New York Times Company in January 2022, with plans to keep it free for all players. It was moved to their website in February 2022, where you can play it daily right now on there. However, I suggest you play the CoCo version first. Well, there you have it, another brand new game for your CoCo 3. Until next month, happy CoCo gaming and retro forever.
Here's a color computer monitor bargain from your nearby Radio Shack. Save $50 on our exclusive Tandy CM8 RGB analog color monitor. Only $249.95 during this sale. It's designed specifically for the Color Computer 3. It's a perfect complement to the superb graphics capabilities of the Color Computer 3 and produces sharp, crisp text and dazzling graphs and illustrations. The sale price Tandy CM8 color monitor. Only at Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
Well, it's that time again. We have reached the end of episode 81 on the CoCo Crew Podcast. I'd like to thank our host, John Linville, for procuring all the news articles each month and providing us with informative tech segments. Mike Rowan, for painstakingly editing the podcast and creating those super fun commercials. Boise Pete, our CoCo historian. He remembers it, so you don't have to. Last but not least, all of you who listen and support us each month. We really do appreciate hearing your feedback. Until next month, happy CoCoing and retro forever.
It's a blast from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo. 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 CoCo.
Dance like there's no tomorrow.
What is this crazy rock and roll music anyway?
It's a blast from the past.